Hello and welcome to What a Guy Wants. I am Coach Yogesh, and this is my friend and my co host, Coach Ali. And together we bring this podcast, which is about all things men, all topics that actually men think about, but not necessarily are comfortable speaking about, is what is spoken here. So everything that we talk about here is without any shame, without any judgment, and a complete safe space to be ourselves, and that's what we invite all of you to as well. Coming back to actually what today is all about, Ali, struggle. We've had a little bit of struggle with the word struggle as well. So, Ali, how do you see this word struggle in your worldview?
So, firstly, hello everyone. So, it's really interesting when Yogesh, a couple of weeks back, we were thinking about an episode, and Yogesh came up with man and struggle, right? And when I heard the word struggle, the first thing is that it was my strong resistance to that word. For some reason, as time has passed, I've developed a very negative connotation with that word struggle. And to give you a bit more background, and had we not had that conversation, Yogesh, I would not have had that clarity I have now. Is more like, and it's not only with you, like, if I'm having a conversation with my wife and we go into the past and my wife says, this was that phase where we got married and that was our struggling phase. And I'm like, and every time she says that, I'm like, it's met with a lot of resistance on my side. And it made me journal about it. And as I journal, I realized that, as I was growing up, the words that I heard was that life has to be a struggle. To make ends meet, you have to struggle. To be successful, you have to struggle. And so it's one of those things when I kept hearing those words as I went through university and I went through life, it's more like I have to struggle. So struggle means that without struggle, nothing can come and nothing can come easily and effortlessly. It always has to be a struggle. And it's almost like in my mind, I became a victim of struggle. And about 5 years ago, when I started working on myself, I'm like looking at these beliefs, I'm like, oh, life has to be a struggle. And I'm like, no, that's not true for me. Life has never been a struggle for me. There have been challenging aspects of life, but life has been beautiful and it's not been a struggle. Yes, it's ups and downs. And from this day onwards, I choose not to use the word struggle. And as I journal further before I call today, I realized, Yogesh, that something that I was doing is that such a unconscious thing that I believe that my definition of struggle is the universal definition of struggle, and everybody has the same definition of struggle, and that's not true. And although, like, I can still feel like a strong resistance to this word, I'm getting better at accepting other definitions of struggle and being okay with it. So that's where I am. Yeah.
That's great. And thank you for sharing. It gives me an insight on a lot of things that you've gone through and now even still going through. So for me, I think one of my philosophies has been that, okay, some words might be triggering for me. One aspect of it is to find out and inspect and inquire, why is this triggering for me? So there's a reason why it is. And the other aspect is also to let go of anyone else using that word. Like their usage of word is their business. Now, it could be a very strong word like genocide or rape. And those words are just universally triggering because those are very like negative things. I'm not talking about those kind of things because it's actually quite wrong to use them and actually to have those conversations and actually say it's okay and all of those things. So that is completely off that. But once we go to these kind of words, these are actually words which have a connected meaning to it. And what I'm hearing right now, if I may like go a little bit more deeper into it, I feel yes, in life, say a lot of things we have to earn it. And that's a good attitude to have so that we don't become entitled, right? You work hard so that you get it and then you earn the thing and then you get the dopamine which you worked for rather than just become a entitled couch potato. However, the other side of that messaging is actually, I feel this is what is the triggering aspect for most of us. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I'm going to put it out there and then you can accept it or reject it. No attachment to it from my side whatsoever. Is that when this kind of messaging is coming up, right? What the kid is actually understanding and what is actually feeling for them is you are not loved completely, unconditionally. You have to earn the love. So when that kind of messaging, and it doesn't need to be that a parent or someone is giving that message, but actually it's understood that way by that kid. And that is very triggering because it means that I need to do something. I need to be a nice boy, get the grades, become a speaker, do all of that to actually be loved. And it's very triggering.
Yeah, it is. I think that, it's one of those things where we go about life and sometimes like things trigger us, but we don't realize that the trigger is coming from something like way in the past. And it's about like, when sometimes, you're having a conversation, and when we were having it, it became that word, right? It just came into my field of consciousness and how I've been dealing with that word. And again, right, like if we go a bit more deeper, it's about if I don't struggle, I won't feel enough. And it's about like, that's linked to like enoughness. And I guess that for me, it's like that word itself is like almost like a negative connotation. And it's, I see it as a disempowering word. But at the same time, I do also accept that, as I am learning as well, that it's not a disempowering word for everyone. It might not hold the kind of trigger that it holds for me. But at the same time, I can see that as you're going deeper, what I became aware to was struggle is like you have to work hard. And I think it's also a lot connected with love. And another brilliant point which you stated is that when something is said as in a child's mind, it can be interpreted so differently that it actually changes the meaning of what is actually said. And what happens is that as those words are said, right, as they're sitting in, right, they become beliefs, and that beliefs become our own foundations. And so that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally understand when struggle is something I have to do to feel enough. It is absolutely negative thing because that is the belief which has been set in childhood because, as you said, because of different languages, different understandings and so forth. And that is the egoic play of struggle. So the egoic play of struggle is if I don't do this, then I'm not good enough. If I don't do this, I'm not loved. That is absolutely a negative thing. That is something consciously we need to work on to get out of our system. So this is not so much of the word, but the energy that I need to do something to be good enough. Actually, I'm not okay in otherwise I'm actually, if my weight isn't this way, that I'm not good enough. All of this is that kind of a negative egoic thing which is actually not serving.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you nailed it, right? It's not the word that matters. It's our very own interpretation of that word that matters. And that's the thing that holds meaning for us. And that's how we go about life. And sometimes it's just like you hear that word and something triggers. And it's about getting present to understand like what is so triggering about that. Like, what part of us got triggered and why? And it's about going deeper into it for understanding. But having said that, Yogesh, I'm also curious to know, like, how do you define struggle?
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to come to that. Like the reason why I wanted struggle as a topic, because see, this is one side of the struggle meaning, which we were actually defining for Ali and how it means. And I actually agree with you. That part of struggle, which is us being triggered and being not good enough, is actually not a great definition of struggle. And that's not my definition of struggle. So, see, growing up in Dubai, right? Dubai is this very high paced, fast paced, sometimes very fancy part of the world where a lot of kids my age are second, third generation entrepreneurs and they resist coming out of their comfort zone because something is already given to them on a platter. So I want my definition of struggle, or at least some part of the struggle, is that struggle, which is actually getting out of your comfort zone, is required by every person to become the man who they are destined to become so that they can actually get into their power. So for me, it is that struggle. Like think about a struggling actor before he gets his breakthrough and then becomes a superstar. If he doesn't give in the resumes, if he doesn't actually go through all of that, he doesn't appreciate the high which he gets if he doesn't go through the difficult challenges. So for me, it's more about getting out of your comfort zone. What's coming up for you now?
So being really honest, right? So my take on struggle, right, is that I don't use the word struggle, I use the word challenges.
Yeah.
And that resistant part of me, as you said, right, like going through the challenges. So that resistant part of me just went, see, Yogesh, it's like the word is not really struggle, it's challenges. because you keep using the word challenges. So I can feel that, like, that resistance of that word. And it's just so interesting. It's like, it also gives me the feeling and that knowing that maybe I have to do a bit more work where that particular word is concerned for myself. But yes, I completely agree that, as taking your definition of struggle, right? It's about not sitting in the comfort zone. It's about taking on those challenges and growing to become the person that you've already seen in your mind's eye. And that's an empowering place. And it's one of those things where it's so easy to just sit back. Like, so imagination is a powerful thing. And imagination, what it does is that it shows us in a mind's eye everything that's created on the outside is created here. And when we can see it in the mind's eye, we can create it in this reality that we live in. And again, if that definition is taken from the thing, struggling to come out of that comfort zone, come out of that luxury living to actually achieve what you really want to achieve, then absolutely, like, struggle is it can be seen as an extremely empowering word. And it's a journey that in some shape or form, everybody needs to go through in order to get what they want to get.
I love that. And firstly, I like to laud you. It takes a lot of courage to actually go with a word which is inherently very triggering and then be okay with shooting an episode, doing the work, sitting with it and understanding it. So I feel already you've taken a lot of steps. And even if you feel resistance towards it, it's absolutely normal, because getting out of the resistance is not a one day thing. Also, another thing that comes up is I don't get so attached to the words anymore. I feel words, conversation, all of these things are very like verbal communication is only 7% of actually real communication. So I've kind of detached myself from words. Even if someone says this word freedom, like freedom is a huge word for me, right? Huge value system. But if someone says, you know what, freedom is stupid, it's actually not a thing, I'll then just try to understand what they mean behind what part of the freedom or energy is stupid. And they're like, you know what, freedom means I choose to eat 10 burgers instead of work out. So that part of it, of going out of my discipline, is actually stupid. And I understand they're actually talking about letting go of their discipline that they're talking about, not exactly freedom, but they use freedom in that context. So I just try to understand the energy behind it, the logic behind it, the context behind it, and then I let go of the word. So that is one thing which I do. Anyways, coming back to the thread of struggle, right? I actually now have a third definition of struggle as well. It just came up to me right now. I think this is the crux of what I also want to talk about, in addition to the getting out of your comfort zone. This main aspect of struggle, which is the difficult time we face in our lives. So think about this, the hero's journey, right? I spoke of the actual budding actor going through a struggling phase. I can also give you another analogy, is Batman. For him to become Batman, he actually lost his father at a very early age. He actually had a traumatic experience where he fell in the well, bats all around. So going through that difficult phase in your life, I call it struggle. I think it's pivotal in this journey to go through that difficult time. Even a diamond that needs to come out needs to go through fire. So that is my third definition of struggle. What is your take on this angle of it?
So I think about, like, as you said, like, going into that, like, Batman's journey. And that is the process, that difficulty that actually made him Batman. It converted him into Batman. And that was the journey he had to go through. And I can see where you're coming from. And that struggle was extremely important for him in order to become who he had to become. Again, like, in the last episode, or the one before that, we spoke about the alchemist. And it's about how he, in order to look for that gold, he went from station to station to station to station. And he went through that entire journey where he learned so much, and only coming back to where he started to realize that, oh, you know what? The goal that I was looking for was here all the time. It's just I didn't know. So the struggle was an important part for him to get the goal that he was looking for.
So beautiful. And I would say, because of the whole journey, the fruit tastes even more sweeter.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because if it's not a journey, right, it can easily convert into that entitlement feeling. Then we won't, if we don't work for it, and if it's all just coming so easily and effortlessly. And by working for it, I meant like in a positive way. How appreciative would we be of the end outcome? How much would we value the end outcome? And it's about, let's just say that the satisfaction of like, I'm using another metaphor here, but the satisfaction of actually winning a Tesla as a prize versus the satisfaction of perhaps actually working towards it and actually then buying it and then sitting in the car and feeling that like, okay, you know what, I went through all this, and right now, because of the financial independence I have, I can actually buy this and I actually value this. I think it's a very different feeling altogether.
Absolutely. And that is the takeaway message. That is the cream of the thing which I think I want to talk about is when we actually go through that and come out of it, we become better men. So that's the reason why I actually brought up Dubai. And some of us are living, are born with a silver spoon and given everything. And that could actually mean that we avoid the struggle. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, the good news is we can never avoid the struggle. So even if you keep avoiding it, universe and life will bring it to you. And I'm so happy, I'm so relieved that you spoke of one side of the struggle. I think that is the internal struggle, which is I'm not good enough at all. So that is one aspect of the struggle, which means I need to work on something, work to be loved. But the other struggle is I actually need to experience life and actually work to become the man I have to become.
That's beautiful. And as you were talking, Yogesh, I watched this documentary and it was shot in India. There's this like apparently in one, I don't remember the names, but I remember the story, and it was like a good 40-minute long documentary. And there's this family where what they believe is that they're very, they come very abundant family and lots of wealth. And what they do is that after their sons, right, turn a certain age, and it's something that they do generationally, what they do is that they send their son to another state, to another city where nobody actually knows them. And they give them 5,000 rupees. And they're like that for 1 month, you have to live in this 5,000 rupees. And what you need to do is that every single week, you will change your job. So it's not like you can get a job on the first day and stick with that for a month. You change your job. And I saw that documentary where I think it was like a 19 or 20-year-old, and he goes through that entire journey of just becoming more humble, at the same time also realizing his superpower of, this can be done, that can be done. Also going through the pain of like sleeping on a bed which has pretty much no mattress, it's just the frame. Going through all that and then seeing the output of that, it was almost like the way I saw it was that it was more like, when in order to get the diamond has to be put under pressure. And I saw that output, and I saw that is something extremely, extremely beautiful. And it was just 1 month, and it was probably the most excruciating time for that person, but that was probably the biggest gift that person could get for himself. And it was more like it was done from generation to generation. And it was like, oh wow, that's pretty interesting. At the same time, the thought comes to me is that, like, what if this person buckles? But at the same time, even if he buckles, he will learn something, and something will come out of it, and something will happen from it. So yeah.
I love that. And I think that's 100% aligned with the theme that life will bring up a struggle that will either make you or break you. And the funny thing is, if we actually understand the nature of life, understand the nature of the struggle, more often than not, we can actually become the person we have to become. We can become the Batman who's actually really strong, has all the tools, knows when to use the tools, and so forth. But even if it breaks us, this is actually great because for the next time, we can actually learn. If we actually learn from it, we actually grow from it, we can actually go on to become that. So what is actually coming up is struggle is inevitable part of life.
I'm warming up to that idea, the word. Of course, like I would say that challenging oneself is absolutely the form of life, of course. And I also genuinely do believe is that at times, maybe one needs to, maybe my words aren't the most appropriate ones, but the words that are coming from me right now is that sometimes in order to build ourselves up, we need to first break ourselves down.
Absolutely. So another thing is, in order to be our highest self, we need to see the difficult, low, nothing side of us as well. In essence, that's the process of life, right? We separate to eventually get union. We become that eventually to actually get to where we have to get. So that is the, how do you say, the contradictory side of life. It's always working in these opposites, polar opposites. You need to get to that to get to here. And the whole crux is, if we actually judge this part of us, we need to lose something to actually get it. If we judge this part of, oh my God, I lost it, oh my God, all of it, and I then stay with it as an identity and stay with it as this happened to me, that's the whole challenge of this struggle or challenges, whatever the difficult phase we think is. If we just get stuck there, there's actually a very, very high possibility that you'll get stuck in those things.
Absolutely.
And that actually you won't be able to get back to the place you have to get back to.
It's one of those things, right? It's almost like a test where you'll be challenged on the same challenge again and again until you actually come out of that. And again, as you were talking, the image that came to my mind is that fighter in the arena. And what if that fighter in the arena or the boxer in the boxing ring became scared of an injury and didn't fight, right? It's one of those things where you become scared of an injury, but the injury itself can heal. But the regret of not doing anything might not make such an impact now because life is busy. But the regret of not doing anything when reflecting upon one's life, maybe in a few decades from now, that regret can actually be huge, all for that injury, right? Really interesting.
Absolutely. So, in essence, it's not doing justice to your life and actually to your purpose and your mission. So, Ali, as we're getting closer to the end of our episode, can you now connect struggle with the higher purpose or mission for a man?
Absolutely. So I can connect that how it's important, and I can see, like, how that definition can be extremely empowering for some people, like that. And I guess that what's coming up for me strongly is that that's probably not the word for me. It's not something that applies to me. But of course, like, I can see that in another light. And again, our conversations about this, like, just open, it's almost like the whole meaning of, like, what's been sitting there. So it's almost like I'm trying to understand. So sometimes we feel that, oh, you know what, right now I feel that I'm actually healed. And then something pops up and you're like, oh, wow, like, where did this come from? And you're like, oh, you know what? Oh, it's there. So it's about, like, just working a bit more on my own self. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. So, Ali, if I would say, what would be your advice? What would be something you would tell someone going through a challenging and difficult phase in their life?
I would say that feeling stuck is normal. And when you're feeling stuck, instead of meeting that stuckness with judgment, meet it with self-compassion and self-kindness. And self-kindness is not something that is soft. Self-kindness is more like, I am here for you and I know you can do it and I know you will do it. And again, feeling stuck is only a part of the process. And I would almost say that the most powerful thing that you can do at that time when you're feeling stuck, and it can be at times the hardest, is to be grateful. Because when you feel stuck, right, and we are sitting in that hole, in that dark hole, what gratitude does is that it shines light on other aspect of our things. And one last thing I would end with is that when in your stuckness, do not compare yourself to anyone else's success, because it's one of those things where what you will do is, the chances are that you'd be like, you know what, they had this advantage, but I didn't have that. By completely focusing on their advantages that you don't have, you miss out on the opportunities and the advantages that are already there for you to take. So that would be, that's what I would like to end with that.
Wow, I absolutely love that. And if I may say it, in my worldview, you use the word injury, which, as someone who's, I consider myself very big on sports, fitness, athletics. Sometimes I get stuck if I get a small injury. And at that point of time, what is most required is to actually be thankful that, you know what, I should be thankful that I love fitness so much. I love moving so much, to actually move in different ways, rehab and do different things at that point of time, rather than compare myself to other people. Because when I get an injury, I actually see myself comparing myself to that person. You know what? He is so built because he has better genetics. Why didn't I have better genetics that my body keeps getting injured more and more? So actually, during that challenging phase, what are we learning? And can we actually have gratitude and be thankful for what we have? That will actually open up a door for the next solution and so forth. And that's in general, that is the hero's journey, to go through that very difficult phase, to go through that pressure, to become the diamonds that we all are. Thank you so much. This has been really enlightening, Ali. Thank you for playing with the word struggle, for going through the episode, although internally it would be very challenging for you. And for everyone else, this is what a guy wants. Here, We talk about things that are a bit uncomfortable, bit challenging, but we do it with complete authenticity and honesty. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast on Spotify. I'm not here for the obligatory like, share, and subscribe. The whole purpose behind What a Guy Wants is to make you a better man. If you think this is making you a better version of yourself, please like, share, comment, and see you next week.